Hello and welcome to your Astro Tarot forecast for the week of March 24th through the 30th. We are approaching the end of this crazy, Cassini heavy, retrograde, eclipsey month, but that doesn't mean that the energy is over. This week is riddled with opportunities for change and transformation. So we're going to dive in as usual. If you're new here, we do the week ahead, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We do cards and astrology of the week. And then this week, I'm going to go back to our normal format where I do a earth, air, fire, water card from the Total Betty Goddess deck. So stick around for all of those things. And I highly encourage you, if you're watching these readings at the beginning of the week, to go back throughout the week and review or preview what's going to happen for the day-to-day forecast. I put timestamps down below, and it's really helpful to kind of get the forecast of the week before it happens, but also in the moment. I've been finding it really helpful, even with my own readings, to go back and listen to the day of, either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, to kind of process what kind of energy is happening, because I do find that they are coming forward as relatively accurate energies, and I don't take credit for that. It's just how the cards and the astrology plays out. I'm just the translator. So with that in mind, we'll dive in. And Monday, which is the time that I'm recording this, because yesterday was kind of overcast, so to get some sunlight, I'm recording this on Monday, and I'm hitting it right at the Mercury Cazimi. So by the time you watch this, Mercury Cazimi has hit its starting point, and that's where the sun lines up with Mercury today. So that always means that it intensifies the energy of the planet. So Mercury is about communication, transportation, and technology, but especially communication. So usually Mercury Cazimi is a good day to communicate. It's a good day to share something with the world. It's a good day to have a conversation. However, Mercury is retrograde right now. So I get the energy that it's still a good day to have that conversation or to speak your truth or just to catch up with the people in your life. But just keeping in mind that Mercury retrograde might make things feel a little more muddled, or that the message might not get across the way that you intend it. So keep the conversations lighter. I myself found myself this morning unintentionally, but very astrologically aligned, catching up with all of my immediate family members by phone call. So if that's what's happening for you, that also tracks for our card, because our card for Monday is the Three of Cups. So the Three of Cups is a card of community. So this really is a good day to connect to your community. Mercury also kind of deals with sort of your immediate community of like your hometown, your neighborhood, your coworkers, your friends. And it's just a good day to make those connections, even if it's just like a simple text that you send out to a friend and say, hey, how have you been? How are you doing? Again, keep the heavier conversations for maybe after Mercury goes direct. But if you find yourself in a safe situation with a friend that you trust and that you're willing to kind of get through the muck with, you can also have the heavier conversations. It's just that both parties have to be willing to really listen and clarify. So it's a good day to really practice a technique that they use in couples therapy called imago therapy, where you mirror back to someone what you think they're saying to you. So if you find yourself in a conversation with a loved one or a friend today that you aren't being heard, or you feel like you're not being heard, it might be a good practice to request that when you say something that's important to you, you have the opposite party repeat it back to you in the way that they heard it, and vice versa. If someone's trying to give you a really important message or tell you something really important, it might be a good day to kind of say, okay, let me see if I got this right. You're saying X, Y, and Z. And then wait for confirmation from the other parties saying that you got it right. Because sometimes we think we hear what people are saying, but our own influence or just semantics, the word choice that they're using, kind of muddle the message. So we want to make sure that we get really clear what we're saying to one another. And in our intimate relationships, hopefully you have that comfort level that you can say like, okay, let's pause for a second. Let me make sure I heard you right. This is what I think you're saying. Is that correct? And then they can then mirror that back to you as well. You can request that they mirror back to you what you've said and ask you if it's correct for confirmation. So just a good day to employ those little nice psychological therapeutic practices to your most important relationships. That being said, it also could just be a day that you're communicating with yourself. You're journaling more, you're creating something. It is a really good day for inward communication because it's not necessarily going to matter that it's muddled by Mercury retrograde. You can do edits later. So if you're working on a piece of writing or editing something, Mercury retrograde is great for those energies. And then you can always wait to share it with the world once Mercury goes direct and you've done a final edit. But today could be a good day for that energy to flow and to put something forward in something that you're creating. So after Monday, we move into Tuesday and we have a little sextile. So again, that's a sweet little easier going energy of Mercury and Pluto meeting up in the sky. And our card for the day is the Wheel of Fortune. So Mercury is about communication, again, as we just said with our Mercury Cazimi, and Pluto's about change. And this is kind of maybe a day to change the way you communicate. And the Wheel of Fortune also kind of supports that message because you're constantly kind of transforming the way that you look at things as the wheel moves forward. So if you're not familiar with the Wheel of Fortune, it's one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's always a reminder that whether we're on an upswing in life or on a downswing in life, we're always going to get the other end. So if you're having a really good time and you're at the top of the wheel, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be fearful of the other shoe dropping. It means that you should recognize the other shoe is always going to drop. There's always going to be a downswing inevitably at some point, and you should really enjoy the upswing and kind of bring it in your memory bank and put it in gratitude lists and be able to come back to that memory of when things were really good, so that if you do have a downswing, because we will, because that's what happens when a wheel moves forward, you will then be able to remember what it was like on the upswing of things. And you can kind of let that motivate you to keep going forward so that you make it back to an upswing. So when that is in relation to Mercury sextile Pluto, I'm thinking that the change in the way that we communicate, maybe based on those connections that we make on Monday, is going to bring us forward into our next chapters. Like recognizing the ways that you used to communicate that aren't working and transforming that, even if it kind of feels like a difficult downswing for a while, is going to ultimately keep that wheel rolling. And honestly, it could be as simple as that technique that I just gave you for Monday is going to be part of the way that you start to transform the way that you communicate with people moving forward. And that might be kind of cementing itself as we move into Tuesday with Mercury sextile Pluto. So again, a day to communicate as long as you're communicating with someone that's really willing to be that receptive partner and kind of go this back and forth sort of like tennis match energy, and being respectful of the fact that your truth or what you hear might not be what the other person means. And also what you accept as your truth doesn't have to be someone else's truth. So there's a lot of compassion at play for these first 2 days during our communications, with Mercury doing these little movements around aligning with the sun and then sextiling with Pluto. As we move into Wednesday, we have some interesting energy because Lilith is moving into Scorpio. So Lilith is not a planet, it's like a asteroid. It doesn't always come up in astrology, but I've recently added it more into my notes and into my own intentional personal practice when I look at astrology, because Lilith is kind of, I hate the word shadow side because we often get into this trap of thinking the shadow side is like a negative aspect of ourselves, and it's not. The shadow side is like the denied aspect of ourselves, or the part of ourselves that society would like us to keep hidden. And Lilith can kind of like rise out of the shadows and bring you a deep sense of power. So the phrase that's coming into my head for this one is actually like, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And so like Lilith is kind of like rising from the depths of hell to come forward and really not seek vengeance, but like allow yourself to be seen for all parts of yourself. And especially when Lilith is in Scorpio, because Scorpio is all about the underworld and bringing the darkness to light. And this is going to be a really good transition to get comfortable with those shadow aspects of yourself. So again, if you're not familiar with sort of the psychological terms of shadow aspects, it's your denied self, self. So the parts of yourself that somewhere along the line someone told you weren't allowed to be. So a lot of times in society, it's if you were presenting as more of a feminine energy growing up, maybe you were told that you couldn't be too masculine, or vice versa. If you were presented as a masculine energy growing up, you were told that feminine aspects of yourself were not okay. And so we kind of bury those things in the shadows and we kind of keep them hidden. And then we start to kind of process things as we get older and as society becomes more accepting and more broader minded. And we realize that these parts of ourselves that we've denied for so long actually aren't bad. They just weren't what society deemed normal. And so we're kind of deprogramming those childhood programs of what was acceptable for us. So that's the denied self. The other aspects of the shadows can be your forgotten self. It can be parts of yourself that you actually did embrace, but like something in society told you that it wasn't worthwhile. So maybe you were really artistic growing up and someone told you that that was never going to make you money and you shouldn't do that. And so you kind of forgot that part of yourself and you kind of let it go to the wayside, and it's still within you, like hoping to come forward from the shadows. So then there's also the elements of ourselves that are kind of like trauma-based and things that we really do feel like we need to bury down. And those too need to come to light because they are also a true part of ourselves. And integrating all of these shadows within our life, within ourself, within our acceptable sense of state of being is going to really help us flourish in the world and heal if we need to. So you do have a Lilith in your chart if you get the right sort of astrology calculations to be able to tell you what Lilith is. So if you check out where Lilith is in your particular chart, then that might help you kind of know what sort of things you're really working on within your shadows. Or if you look at where Scorpio is in your houses, again, if you're new here, you start with your rising sign, if you know your birth time, and that's point 1, and then you just go around the astrology wheel and all the other signs number to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you can figure out what Scorpio's number is. You can look up that house and figure out what area of your life that correlates to. And you can figure out where this shadow is kind of being brought to light. So in addition to Lilith moving to Scorpio on Wednesday, we also have Mars square Chiron. So squares can be kind of uncomfortable. Mars is a very powerful, abrasive energy. And Chiron is our wounded healer side. So there is a lot of sort of shadow side wounds, things coming to the surface on Wednesday, which is why I think it's actually really good that our card is the Two of Cups, because this is a very sweet card. And it's a reminder of two things. One, there are partnerships in your life, be they romantic, friendships, familiar, our soulmates in our life, our soul family is there to support us when we need to sort of help finding a place where we can love ourselves and we can integrate our shadows and we can accept all parts of ourselves, because usually our closest soulmates are accepting those parts of ourselves already and they already see them even though we think we're denying them and keeping them in the shadows. It's also, I think, a card of integration for us personally, internally, because we can have the Two of Cups in our outside relationships, or we can have the Two of Cups in an internal union within ourselves. And so I think this is us kind of taking our shadow and our light and bringing it together in this sweet little inner union. And again, if you need your external relationships to help mirror back to you that self-love that you're trying to achieve, absolutely reach out. But also know that you have the support system within you, that you can blend these two sides of yourself and feel more whole and integrated. So it's a great day for self-love. It's a great day for diving deep into your inner child, your psyche. If you do any sort of meditation or journaling practice around those aspects of yourself, it's a really good day to check in with those things. I'm getting sort of an assignment coming forward that you might want to write a letter, a question to your inner child and say, what is it that I am missing in my life? If your 6-year-old self could be transplanted into your life right now to kind of look around at all your cool stuff and think it was really cool that you're an adult and you can do whatever you want, then you can kind of give them sort of the mental tour, which will be great for you because you can find gratitude for the things that you have in your life already that your inner child would think are really amazing that you might have been taking for granted. And then you can kind of check in with that inner child and be like, we've got all this cool stuff. What do you feel like we're missing? What did you think or hope that we would have? Or what would you want to see in this life that we've built? And I think you're going to get some really surprising answers from that. I'm actually really excited to do that practice because it just came forward now as I was talking. So yeah, I would love to know if you do this practice. Put in the comments below maybe what some of your inner child's requests were. Like, what is it that you want to integrate more into this life that you've built for yourself to make it feel more in line with who you've always been? Moving from Wednesday into Thursday, we have Venus conjunct Neptune. So Venus conjunct Neptune means that they're lining up in the sky. So basically the same idea with our cazimi. It was the sun and Mercury lining up. So Venus and Neptune are lining up in the sky, which means that they're intensifying one another's energies. Venus is the planet of love and beauty. It's also retrograde right now. Neptune is the planet of sort of like dreaminess. It's sort of like an ethereal energy. It's that like water energy. So it's definitely, it's a good day to get a little daydreamy without trying to take too much action. Because again, we have this very dreamy planet energy with Neptune. We also have this very, very beautiful energy with Venus that's kind of retrograde, so things are a little unclear. So this feels like a day to daydream, but recognize that the daydream has a bit of a fog on it. It could be a day as a potential warning that you get a little delusional about what it is that's possible, especially within your relationships. So just be mindful of your expectations of the world around you. You can expect more from yourself and change things within your own internal world, but you might not be seeing the external situations quite as clearly. So recognize that you have a bit of a like rose-colored glasses on, or like a hazy Neptune, like sea creature goddess. Like you've got some goggles as you go on your deep sea dive, or you've got some rose-colored glasses from Venus, and things might not be quite what they seem. That doesn't mean that they can't be just as great as you see them now, but it's maybe not the day to take action on something until you get a little more clarity. We also have Venus retrograde moving from Aries into Pisces. Sorry, my writing's really little and my eyesight is not great, so I had to kind of squint at that to figure it out. So Venus retrograde is moving from Aries back into Pisces because it's going retrograde in the sky. So we're moving backwards through the signs, which means that we're also going into this very dreamy Pisces energy in regards to Venus. So, I mean, here's what I want to say about this. Enjoy it, but don't make too many concrete future plans. I feel like this could be a really good day for like a very dreamy romantic love affair tangent or fantasy that's going on. Not such a good day to hang all your hopes on that romantic fantasy or love affair. That's not to say that it couldn't potentially last. It's just not the time to be like, oh my gosh, we're so having such a great time together and this is the ultimate fantasy, let's go elope. Like that's not the energy of this day. It's like enjoy it for whatever it is in the moment. So that could be a physical interaction, or it could be your actual like mental image of your daydreams. But don't feel like you need to commit to anything that's happening on this energy, because it is kind of a little bit like you can't see far enough ahead to be able to fully commit to what's happening right now. And with that in mind, oh my God, the card, I didn't even notice the cards yet. The card totally mirrors this, because the 7 of Cups is about daydreaming, about your future options, but we have it reversed. So again, those daydreams aren't quite as clear as we want them to be. Everything is not quite what it seems on Thursday. So that's not to say that you can't enjoy the fantasy of it. I'm a Pisces moon. I love a good fantasy, but don't alter your entire life or make really tangible future commitments to whatever's unfolding on Thursday yet. Again, could happen. It's just not the time to make those commitments. On Friday, the 28th, we have the only day of the week that's pretty quiet on the astrology. So we are moving into our card, which is the 2 of Wands. On Friday the 28th, you have a choice between 2 passions that you're going to be making. And the thing I love about the Two of Wands is the energy always comes forward for this card as you're making a choice, but you're not necessarily getting rid of the choice that you're not choosing. So this is about choosing the fruit that's the ripest, the rose that has the most bloom on it. You're going to pick the flower that's ready to be harvested, pick the fruit that's ready to be harvested, and then you may decide to come back for the other choice down the line. It just needs to develop a little bit more. So, and again, it's going to be all about your free will. You may decide to choose one and you don't have to come back for the other one. But there are two things that you're feeling pretty passionate about right now. Could be two interests, two passions, two people. And you're going to choose the one that's the ripest, that's the most ready for you in this moment, and it's the best match for your energy. And then know that just because you choose one thing doesn't mean the other choice goes away. You could always potentially come back around and be in better alignment for that second choice down the line. Sometimes you need the first choice to get ready for the second choice too. So follow your intuition, follow your passion, pick the one that feels like it's got the most legs. Moving into Saturday, we have lots of stuff happening astrologically. So we have Mercury conjunct Neptune. So again, we have that dreamy Neptune energy that was just conjunct Venus. And now it's conjunct our other retrograde planet, Mercury. So this is like dreamy in regards to communication. So again, we got fuzzy Mercury retrograde energy. We got fuzzy Neptune energy. Things are not quite what they seem when it comes to your communication today. Could be a really good day to do some like short story fiction writing. Like this is a great day to go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with reality. Not such a great day to have a really defining conversation in your relationships, whether it be romantic, platonic, business-based. Not a really clear day to get those interactions down. It's also a new moon in Aries that is an eclipse. So this is our end of our first eclipse portal of this year. So we've got the first eclipse that happened at the beginning of the month. This one's happening now. We've been through a transformational process over the past several weeks, and this is kind of a bit of an end cap to it. We're not done, but we get a little bit of a reprieve. We kind of have learned some sort of lesson over the past 3 weeks, or 2 weeks. So the other things that are happening is Mercury retrograde is moving from Aries back into Pisces. So again, we got that really hazy energy around our retrograde and our Neptune cazimi because it's also taking place in Pisces. And the other thing, nope, that's it. Those are the 4 things. We got the new moon, which is an eclipse. We've got the Mercury going back into Pisces, and we've got the Mercury retrograde in Pisces conjunct Neptune. This is a really uncertain day. However, our card is the King of Cups. So there's one of 2 ways to read this card depending on what's going on in your life. If there's an external relationship in your life, you or the other person could come forward presenting themselves as a really good partner, a really romantic match for you. Again, it's not necessarily a day to take action on that. But there is a potential well-suited romantic partner or creative collaborator coming through with the King of Cups, because the King of Cups has really established themselves. They understand and can really communicate their emotions really well. It's a very emotionally mature energy, but also emotionally in touch energy, and also a really great creative collaborator. So that could be happening on Saturday. It also could be that you are bringing forth your own inner King of Cups and you're becoming very emotionally mature and very creatively like in your zone. So not a bad energy to have. If you are presented with some sort of creative collaboration, trust that you're both coming at it from this place of expertise, that you're both ready to have this interaction. If it's a romantic partnership, again, trust that you're both coming in it from this emotionally mature and in touch place. But also keep in mind that the particular day this is happening, things are kind of hazy. So this is kind of like a hope for the best, but don't take, like, immediate action. Like, I feel like there's a phrase that's trying to come forward that's a little more cliche than that I can't quite think of. What is it? Expect the worst and hope for the best. That's what I'm trying to say. Not necessarily expect the worst, but like, don't expect haziness. Expect something to be a little different than what you initially see it as. But hope for the best, because it seems like it could potentially be that two very mature people are coming together, or your very mature energy is coming forward, and whatever it is that's not quite what it seems, you can handle. You can get through it because of this emotional maturity or creative inspiration and creative like beingness that you've embodied. So that's a very busy day, but our cards think it's pretty positive. As we move into Sunday, Neptune goes into Aries. So Neptune just had this great little arc throughout the week of being in Pisces and meeting up with both of our retrograde planets and just making everything feel really hazy. Now it's moving into Aries. Now, the thing that I always like to talk about with the outer planets, the ones that are kind of farther away from the sun, is that they move very quickly or very slowly through the signs. Hang on, let me get a sip. It takes a long number of years for these signs to change. So, for instance, the best example of that right now is Pluto, our most exterior planet, just moved into Aquarius. And that's like 200 years that it takes for that to move from one planet to the next. No, I take that back. It's not 200 years. It's like 20 years that it takes to move from one planet to the next. It's 200 years till it gets back to the other planet that it was in, or a little bit more than that. With Neptune into Aries, I think it takes like 14 years for that to change from sign to sign. But that also means that it's been quite some time since Neptune was in Aries. So my favorite thing to do when these outer planets change signs is to look up when the last time Neptune was in Aries. The last time that Neptune was in Aries was when the United States Civil War occurred. It could mean that we end up in a civil war. It's not that the energy is not heading in a direction like that, but it rarely happens the same way that it did in the past. In theory, as we encounter these spirals into a sign a second time, we've learned something throughout history. And so it shows up in a different form, but similar energy, and hopefully in a way that we're more evolved. So there is going to be some combativeness to this Neptune in Aries, and that's going to show up both in the macro and in the micro on your personal stage. And I always like to say, the more you can heal your micro, the more you can affect the macro in a better, more positive way. So let's look at your personal life. When Neptune is in Aries, we're talking about fighting for our dreams, but also maybe recognizing that we still need clarity. Like that there's almost a feeling that I'm getting here of like, just because you believe a thing doesn't mean that the rest of the world needs to believe a thing. And accepting that kind of helps to release a little more of that combativeness. That being said, we do have a feeling of like fighting for what's right, for the greater good. And especially with Pluto in Aquarius, we are fighting for the rights of the greater good. So there is an element of being able to see a future, fight for what's right, but also accept what you don't need to change. So don't get too caught up on trying to change someone's beliefs that aren't hurting anyone else. Like, not everyone has to believe what you believe. Let them believe what they want as long as their beliefs are not affecting the lives of other people. Like, if it's their personal beliefs and they're not hurting anyone, let that be. If there's circumstances where someone's hurting someone with their beliefs, that's maybe where we take a little more of that Aries energy and take action. That being said, the cards of the day of this actual movement are double card, because Sundays we like to have two cards fall out of the deck, and it is the Devil card and the Four of Swords reversed. So the Devil card is about our addictive patterns. It's about our addiction to circumstance, situations, relationships, or about addictions in our day-to-day life. So especially with Neptune, if you have any borderline issues with substances, if you feel like there's any sort of substances in your life that aren't healthy for you in particular, and I have no judgments around any of it, as an energy reader, I can tell you that certain substances resonate or don't resonate with certain energies. Because I've had times where I've given energy healing to someone who does a lot of a particular unhealthy substance, and it's fine in their energy. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. And then I've given energy healing to people that don't really do a lot of a unhealthy substance, but it comes forward really intensely that they need to stop doing that substance. So if you feel like there's a substance in your life that you've been unhealthy with, and it could be a drug, an alcohol, or it even could be something that seems like less harmful, like social media. That's my particular addiction that I'm constantly striving to find a balance with, is how much social media is healthy for me and how often do I need to take breaks. So especially with the world stage kind of changing, that might be part of it. You might be addicted to the news cycle. This is definitely looking at the things that just aren't making you feel in your highest power. So whatever that is, definitely tackling that as Neptune moves into Aries, because Neptune does have sort of an escapism to it. So we want to really make sure that we're examining the things that we're trying to escape the world with. And then the Four of Swords, when it's upright, is usually a card of trying to kind of find your calm center. I like to call it the meditation card, because it's like the outside world might feel like a threat, but you can always create that calm center with like meditation or rest or pulling back from the outside world. When it's reversed, I get the feeling that maybe we're forgetting that message, that we are being a little too involved in the outside world and it's harming our mental health. So this is a reminder to kind of turn it back to that place where you're going within. You're disconnecting, you're unplugging, you're coming back to your healthy baseline, whatever that is for you, and remembering who you are and what you believe before you take action in the outside world. And that's going to probably be a theme that continues as Neptune is in Aries for the next, I believe, 14 years. So this is a 14-year cycle that you're working on these things. But the sooner you start, the sooner you can kind of get it under control. So this is a really good cycle to be very mindful of how you're affected by the things outside of you, be they substances, news cycles, exterior drama, and knowing that you always have that calm center to come back to, and that you're in charge of figuring out like what works for you and what doesn't, and where that equilibrium is. Also check where Aries is in your houses. Again, if you know your rising sign, count from 1 over to Aries and find out what that number is, because that's going to be a big theme for the next 14 years of your life. All right, that's a lot. We are going to move into our cards. So I'm going to take a second just to clear that energy, because it feels very hazy after all of that Neptune talk and that heaviness. So just take a second to imagine either picturing you have in your hand or like some little angel figures doing it for you, a golden comb, just like combing any energy that's out of your hair and off of your body. Anything that's making you feel foggy, just kind of start to imagine that moving things around. And then you can imagine picturing putting it into a bowl of water, a flame, whatever resonates with you elementally. You can imagine burying it in the earth. Put that away from you and let it kind of dissolve in water, let it burn away in the fire, let it blow away in the wind, let it bury down into the earth and disintegrate. Whatever your element of choice is, let that go. Okay. So as we move into our earth, air, fire, water goddesses, earth signs. So Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Your card is Brizzo, who goes very well with all this Neptune Pisces energy, because she is the goddess of sleep and dreams and messages from the subconscious. So this is a really good week for earth signs to keep a dream journal by your bed. And try to make it the first thing you reach for when you get any sort of consciousness back into your body. And write anything you remember, because dream journaling really is a practice that gets better over time. It gets stronger over time. So even if you think you don't remember your dreams, like when you wake up, just write the first thing that pops into your head. And maybe it was in your dream or maybe it wasn't, but like it could just be a series of words that you write down at first. And then over time, the more you do this practice, the more you're going to strengthen that muscle, and the more you're going to be able to remember like the story arc from your dreams or symbols from your dreams. And then feel free to look up anything that resonates for you. I like to look up anything like spiritual meaning of, and then whatever thing that you want more of, and just click on the first thing that you're drawn to. It might not be the top search, it might be like the third search or the fifth search, but kind of scroll down that first page of Google search results and click on one. There goes that video thing that happens that I don't know how to turn off. Click on one and be able to trust that that is the one that you're supposed to interpret for this particular symbol. So that's for earth signs. Air signs. So Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Your card is Gillian, played by, the other one was played by Marla Singer in Fight Club. This one's played by Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls. And this is a card, it's a very flirtatious card because it's kind of like spring and like a flirtatious festival energy that she's associated with. But her message is always that you are in charge of saving yourself. So if you're waiting on some sort of romantic partner along to come and like pull you out of a funk or save you from a situation, know that you have the power to save yourself. And then you're going to be that much more of a romantic potential for someone because you're not leaning on them. You're not in a codependent situation. You're in charge of saving yourself. And then you get to meet up with someone who's also capable of saving themselves and have a very healthy relationship. And that could be romantic, it could be platonic, it could be business related. But this is an energy of really making sure that you can get yourself out of the maze is kind of what the metaphor is here, because essentially this goddess is at the center of a maze and someone's supposed to go find her and be rewarded for rescuing her. But because the Total Betty Goddess deck is all about female empowerment or feminine energy empowerment, regardless of your gender, this is a message that you can walk out of the maze whenever you want. Like, she knows the way out. She got herself to the center of the maze. So why choose to wait for someone to rescue you when you can rescue yourself? Earth, air, fire. Fire is Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Your card is Bridget, who is coming up on her time period. Actually, no, she just had her time period because she was embolic. But she's moving into the spring energy. So it's a really beautiful energy to come in, sort of fresh starts, new beginnings, spring cleaning. But she also is a very creative energy, particularly poetry. But if poetry is not your thing, writing, music, art, anything that calls to you creatively is going to be a really good outlet this week. And especially with all of our work around our shadow self and integrations and self-love and daydreams, I think this is going to be a really good way for you to tap into that energy, tap into that inner child. I'm getting a little hoarse because it's Mercury retrograde, so let me take another sip of the tea. Okay, then we have finally our water signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Papa is your goddess. Bridget was played by Kat from 10 Things I Hate About You. I keep forgetting to talk about our 90s counterpart. Papa is played by Cassandra in Wayne's World. And she is the embodiment of magnetic divine feminine energy, again, regardless of your gender. This is being so in love with yourself and your life and your passions that people can't help but be drawn in. So if you're familiar with Wayne's World, think of the first scene that we see Cassandra. She's on stage. She's like lit up by all these lights. And Wayne and Garth can't help but just be like pulled to the stage because she's that magnetic. And yet she's not doing anything to chase or to try and entice them. She's just embodying her full passionate self. She's doing what she loves. And she's standing firm in that passion because she's just like firmly planted center stage. So this is your energy to embody this week, water signs. You are definitely coming into that place of wanting to embody your passions, embodying your full self, and have confidence in that full self, and trust that the opportunities, the people, the things that you need are going to be naturally drawn in. Meditation is also a good way to come back to that center as well. Okay, that was one of our longer readings, and I am getting hoarse, so we are going to go ahead and close it here. But I do want to take a moment to just take a deep breath in and let it all go. And again, I encourage you to look back on this throughout the week. If you do the inner child exercise, comment below telling me what your inner child wants to add to your life right now. And good luck. with all that dreamy Pisces Neptune energy that's happening this week. And try not to manifest on the eclipse, because the eclipses are the one new moon that we don't necessarily want to try any magical work trying to draw something in, because it can get a little funky. Trust me, I've done it.